So in class 7 I had this idea and I'm still ashamed of it. Why the fuck I didn't came up with the counter example? Why the fuck didn't I find out that my idea was wrong earlier? And I didn't really want to make this video. I really didn't want this idea to be put out as an example among other ideas like the vernier calipers one. But it is what it is. I thought this idea would literally just blow up, change my life. And part of the reason was that this idea, the Newton's laws, they are taught to us like in class 7 to 10, even up till class 11. So these ideas are taught in our textbooks. So what I thought was that, what I daydreamt was that my name would be printed on the textbooks. So this prompted me to just constantly go on daydream without ever actually working on it, without ever actually like sitting down, writing it down. So I'll tell you why, but first let's check it out. So action and reaction are not always equal. So we all know Newton's third law, assuming every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Now, this is not the exact statement of Newton's law. Like, it is a pretty simple statement, but that is not exactly what Newton's law states. I'll tell you why this is not an exact representation of Newton's law, but let's just assume this is the dumbed down version of this, Newton's third law. Now, how it started? As I told you, the main problem is that we were taught a very dumbed down version of the law. Like in the previous one I showed you, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So that created misunderstandings. Now, how I got this idea? Mainly there was this question on the unit test. Can single forces exist? Because the main statement of Newton's law is, if a body applies a force on another body, that body that is being applied the force will apply an equal and opposite reaction on the acting body. But so there are two bodies, there's like a pair, but the question in the unit test was, can single forces exist? Like, there is just a singular force without any other body applying it. Can this exist? Now the answer is no, it can't exist, because forces always exist in pair. But for some reason this literally just fucked up my brain. I was constantly thinking, okay, why the force is being applied? So for example, say I clap my hand. Now this hand is first applying force on this hand, but now the reaction is that this hand is applying force on this one, but now this reaction becomes action. So now this becomes a reaction, and then that reaction applies another force on this one. So there is like this infinite loop of force is created, of action reaction thing. Now this is of course wrong. What actually happens is that it's not that if you apply an action then you receive a reaction. The thing is, as you are applying action, there is already a reaction being applied. It's instantaneous. That's what I can say. So now as this fucked up my brain, I was constantly thinking, can there be a counter example of Newton's law? Like, we were provided so many examples of, like, in favor of Newton's third law. For example, the boat one, the gun's recoil, then bow and arrow, then walking, then rocket propulsion, like everything was Newton's third law. There are a lot of examples. But I was constantly thinking, can there be a counter example to Newton's third law? And this is what I got. So we were given an example in a class of the bow and arrow one. So what happens is, can I find a bow here? Okay, I'll just give you my example from my hand. So what happens is that, look, I have a bow, and just remove the arrow for some time. I have a bow and this is a thread. So when I pull the thread off, my bow stretches. When I pull the thread to stretch my bow and then I release it, this stretching was action and releasing and that going back was reaction. This is action, the recoil is reaction. And the counter example was, what if I push my bow too much so that the bow breaks? Now I applied an action, but there is no reaction. I mean, obviously there is a reaction, the bow got destroyed, but the reaction was not equal. It was opposite in a sense. No, it wasn't even opposite. It was literally in the same direction. The bow broke like this. So the action was this and reaction was in same direction, and it was not equal. So this was my counter example. Now second example was, now this one is more convincing. Say I apply a force on something like this. Say this is a cuboid, a cardboard cuboid. So if I apply force here like this, my finger is applying force on this cardboard object, and the cardboard object is applying equal and opposite force on my finger, right? That is what Newton's third law states. But what if I keep my finger here for a very long period of time? Like, what happens then? Then you will see that a depression is created here. That if I apply a force here, and equal and opposite force is applied on me, so it should stay here. The system should stay stable. But what I see is that a permanent depression is created here, which is why. Like, why do we have such a different reaction? This is not the reaction I expected from Newton's third law. And the thing is, where did the energy to cause depression came from? Like, I applied the force and I received an equal and opposite force. The forces cancel each other out. They balance each other out. Why am I telling you this? Now, I'm telling you my failed ideas to, tell you, maybe inspire you to not give up. What I want you to take out of these kind of videos, these failed idea ones, is that, okay, good enough, you will most probably find that you were just dumb or stupid, or it was all just a misunderstanding. But it's fun. That this is what deepens your level of understanding of the topic and the subject, and it's much needed. And so mostly what I want to tell you with these failed idea videos is that most ideas are not just plain outright stupid. They are clever wrong. There is some clever behind it. It's probably because of a misunderstanding, but they're not plain outright stupid. But this one, it was plain outright stupid. And I didn't really want to make a video on this one. The reason why I'm making this video is, now it's not the only dumb idea I've ever thought of. Many dumb ideas just come and go. The main difference with this one was that I spent a lot of time on this. A lot. And not working on this. I didn't spend a lot of time working on this. The time spent was mostly on daydreaming. Like this was when I thought of this idea, I was just starting on my journey of thinking and discovering and inventing ideas. This was just a starting, so I was bound to think of like really dumb ideas. So that's not what I regret. What I regret is all the time wasted on daydreaming. This would change my life, how I would be giving a lecture in so and so university, telling all people why they missed such a stupid counterexample to the Newton's third law, why everyone just couldn't see it before. I used to think that my name would be printed on the books that we were currently studying, so everyone, all of my juniors and like everyone would know my name. I would become an overnight success. I would become a fucking celebrity or something. This is what I was constantly daydreaming. I was thinking, okay, this is how I would shake the hand while taking my Nobel Prize. This is how I would give a speech in my school or maybe in some other university where I'm lecturing other students about this really dumb idea. Most ideas that I've ever thought of, I just usually reject them in like a month or two. It doesn't take more than that. But this idea stuck with me for 2 years. And now I told a lot of my friends, teachers about it. They had like no explanation whatsoever. They had no explanation. And it shows how shallow a level of understanding of the concepts we have, and even our teachers have. And I regret it. So much time wasted. But yeah, shit happens. Whatever. Now, why is this wrong? If I was able to convince you with these two examples that, yeah, Newton's law is wrong, which surprisingly I was surprisingly able to convince a lot of people that, yeah, this is the reason why Newton's third law is wrong. So if I was able to convince you with those two examples that, yeah, Newton's third law is wrong, then it's okay, sweetheart. Shit happens. We all be dumb sometimes. I've been there. So why this is wrong? Now look, obviously the Newton's law states that action, which means force, the force of action, not the literal action. What that means is that, look, I applied force here. The force that is applied is the action, not whole moving of my hand and striking here. That is not the action. The action is just the force that was applied. That is what Newton's law covers that is not what Newton's law means when it says action. And the reaction is also just a force. It doesn't mean, now when I apply a force on this, there is a sound produced. That sound is not in our normal language, in our day-to-day language. That is a reaction to my force applied. But that is not the reaction that what Newton's law means. The reaction is just the force that was applied back on my hand. So I think this enough is able to, remaking of action and reaction is enough to like disprove those counter examples. Like in the case of stretching a bow, this is not action. The fact that the force that is being applied is the action. So when I pull it here, the action was the force on the thread that was being applied, and the reaction was the reaction that, like, obviously I feel resistance when I push it here. That resistance is the reaction. Now, as I wrote it down, then this thought came to me. But why is this true? Why is Newton's third law true in the first place? Yeah, it is. I found a counterexample. Not exactly, but okay, let's think as I was thinking back at that time. Okay, I found counterexamples, but these are just a few counterexamples. it is true for many cases. Why is it true? Why does Newton's third law holds? And as I was thinking, I studied what contact forces is, why contact forces are applied, and mostly they are just electromagnetic forces. So when you push something, what actually happens is the repulsion between the electrons, the outermost electrons of the two surfaces, that repulsion is what feels as the contact force. And there is the obvious gravitational force. So these two forces are what actually constitutes the normal day-to-day lives of what we experience as forces. And the common point between these two is that these two are applied from center to center, and like these two are applied because there is an intrinsic property called mass, and every body that has mass, like every body that can exist, has mass. So every body that has mass, it applies a gravitational force on other bodies. That is what Newton's gravitational law states. So if there is a mass, that will apply or create a gravitational field within its vicinity. Now, because it creates, and same with the charge, and same with the electromagnetic one, the charge creates a electric field within its vicinity, and that is the case with every charge. So when gravitational force is being applied, or when the repulsion or the electrical force is being applied, what happens is that it creates a pair, because no body can exist without a mass. So if a mass is applying gravitational force on another body, by the virtue of the fact that other body has mass too, it would apply an equal and opposite force. That is why Newton's third law holds. Same with the contact one, same with the electromagnetic one. Yeah, Newton's third law does fail in this case, in the magnetic one, not in our normal electrical contact forces or gravitational one, because of this reason. So yeah, this is it. I mean, honestly, this has been a long video. I didn't expect it to be this long, but yeah, whatever.